when you're ready, go ahead and come down onto your back on your mat. And as always, take a moment here to settle. Whether you extend your legs or bend your knees, find a place where you feel supported by the floor. And with your eyes closed, connect to your breath, to the experience of your body from the inside. The most significant piece of these somatic movements is not the movement themselves, but the attention and the awareness required to feel and connect more deeply into the various different places in our bodies where we might be holding on to tension. So this shift is really important so that you can really invite your mind to become more aware, more attentive to what's happening in the experience of your body. Once you feel like the experience of your breath has come more up towards the surface, let your eyes open. Tension from the front body and the back body significantly impact the shoulders. So we'll begin today by releasing any stored tension that might have accumulated through the belly and through the back by moving through our usual arch and flatten pattern. So as you feel ready, with your inhale, let your belly rise. Start to gently tip your pelvis so that your tailbone moves down, and feel your back muscles contract here. See if you can invite the back ribs to draw down, the top of the pelvis to draw up, so that you're conscious of the muscles in your back as they engage. And then very slowly, very gently, release that contraction as if you were melting in your center, sinking and softening your back towards the mat. And once you release that work fully from your back, then start to draw the low back down towards the mat. Feel the front body start to tone. Feel your ribs draw down, your tailbone curl up, maybe your shoulders even move up away from the mat, experiencing how the belly impacts the shoulders. And then slowly release. Give yourself one more cycle moving at your own pace. As you breathe in, let the front body lengthen as the back body contracts, bringing you into this arch. Seeing if you can connect to as many places within the back body as you can. And then slowly and consciously, mindfully, release that contraction, softening all the way down to the mat. And then reversing that curve. Our goal here as we move is not to use all of our force, but to really find a place where we can feel the contraction and the release of contraction, whether we're working in the front body, the shoulders, the back, and letting that work soften fully from the front body. We'll take one more cycle refining those actions a little bit. Your elbows come alongside your ribs, fingertips are going to point up towards the ceiling, and we'll build from the elbows piece by piece by piece into a full contraction of the back. We'll first press your elbows down, then the backs of the arms, then your shoulders. Let your mind feel each of these pieces individually. Keeping those three, draw your shoulder blades towards one another a little bit. Feel how that lifts your chest. Then draw your shoulder blades down your back a little bit, noticing how that arches your back. And then finally bring that tip into your pelvis so that you feel your low back muscles contract as well. Notice how contracting in the low back affects the shoulders and the neck. And very slowly release, softening from the lower back, from the middle back, feeling the shoulder blades rise up your back as you release, letting the shoulder blades melt apart, finally softening all the way back out to zero effort. We'll take one final refined pattern for the front body as well. Your hands tucked back behind your head. These variations here come from a website that I will link in the notes here. So if you'd like to see fuller versions of those two variations on the arch and the flatten, have a look at the notes below. Take a breath in here. And then as you exhale, start to tone the muscles in the belly. Let that draw your low back down, feel your tailbone curl up. Let that movement of your ribs lift your head and your chest. And then let your elbows move in so they point towards the sky. Start to reach your elbows up. See if you can feel your chest sink down as the belly muscles tone and the shoulders curl in. And then very, very slowly from the front body, letting the back body stay soft, not helping lower yourself down. You feel how the front body gets up, and as your head and shoulders come down, let the elbows release out towards the sides, letting the chest muscles soften as you bring the elbows down to the mat. And release your hands from behind your head, and as you're ready, roll yourself over onto your left side. And as you come onto the left, set yourself up so that your knees are comfortably bent. Make a little pillow with your arm, or if it's more comfortable, you can rest your head on a pillow or on a block so that your neck is supported. And then bring your right arm so that it runs along the side of your body with your hand resting on your hip. So we'll start to bring our focus up into the muscles of the shoulders. We're going to think about the shoulder as having 4 directions of movement: forwards, backwards, up towards your ear, and down towards your hip. You'll notice that each of those movements that start at the shoulder affect the arm. So as you explore these movements, let your arm move in any way that feels right. Don't feel the need to keep it fixed or glued to your outer hip. Let it move if that allows you to experience what's happening in the shoulder more deeply. We're going to start by moving the shoulder forward, as if you were going to touch the corner of your shoulder to the center of your chest. So keeping that movement slow, start to draw your shoulder forward here. You'll notice as you do this that your back rounds and the muscles contract to draw your shoulder forward in your chest. And then very slowly release that contraction. And let releasing that contraction be what allows your shoulder to come back to neutral, place where it started. So we'll take that action a couple of times. As you draw it forward, you might notice that your arm rotates, that your belly muscles tone, because the front body connects from the chest all the way down into the belly and even the inner thighs. And then gently soften that work, releasing back to neutral. Take that action one more time. If you can focus on the distance between your shoulder and the center of your chest getting shorter, feeling those muscles contract. And then very slowly releasing that contraction, feeling that distance re-lengthen, letting the shoulder come back to a place where it feels like all the work in the chest has released. Next, we'll take the shoulder backwards in space. Start to draw the shoulder back behind you. As you draw it back, you'll feel the muscles in your back, maybe even down into your low back, contract. And then very slowly release. Try that action again a couple of times here on the right. You might notice that your back arches a little bit as you draw the shoulders back. Feel free to let that happen. And as you release, make sure you're softening from the back body to let the shoulder come back to neutral rather than pulling it forward with the muscles in the front body. Give yourself one more cycle here. As you draw the shoulder back in space, you might notice that your arm rotates so that your palm turns to face up. Your shoulder blade will be moving towards your spine. And then release that contraction, staying really conscious for that process of letting go little by little by little to let the shoulder come back to neutral. The next direction, we'll take the shoulders up towards the ear. So as you're ready, start to draw your shoulder gently upwards. You'll notice contraction right at the upper shoulder, the base of the neck, and then release that contraction little by little by little by little to let the shoulder soften back down again. We'll take that action a couple of times. As you draw the shoulder up, if it feels good, you can also lift your head. Bring your ear and your shoulder closer towards one another. You'll notice that this deepens the contraction. And then very slowly, as you release the shoulder, lower your head. See if you can really keep your attention embedded in those muscles that contracted to draw the head and the shoulder towards one another, so that those same muscles are invited to release, hopefully finding a deeper place of softening than where you began. We'll take that action one more time. Shoulder will draw up towards your ear. Maybe you lift your head. If that's too intense, please do less. Again, our goal is to find conscious contraction, not as much force or effort as we can. And then slowly release. If you have a lot of tension in your neck and shoulders, you might notice that just a tiny bit of movement is more than enough. So please stay with that smaller movement. Find just enough engagement to feel conscious contraction there. Last direction that the shoulder is going to move is down towards the hip. Start to reach out as if you were going to touch the bottom of the mat, and feel how the side of your body shortens like an accordion, compressing. Your ribs draw down towards your hips. Side body compresses. And then slowly release that contraction. Let the shoulder rise back up again. So as with all the other directions, we'll take that a couple of times. You might notice that as you reach down, your head gets lifted up away from the mat. If that feels comfortable to you, it's fine to add that in. Just make sure you're really focused on what's happening in the side of the body. Give yourself one more cycle here. As you contract in the side body, feel how it pulls the ribs closer together on the right side. You might even notice that the right hip draws up towards the right shoulder. And then very slowly release. And letting the side body re-lengthen and soften as you come all the way back down onto the mat. So we're going to use those directions to start to explore shapes that we can draw with our shoulders. The first shape that we're going to explore is a circle. Let the shoulder move up towards your ear, and then let it circle forward, finding that movement towards the center of the chest, noticing what needs to release to allow this to happen. And keeping your pace nice and slow, let it move down towards your hip. And finally circle around towards the back, and then back up towards your ear again. Give yourself one more circle going in this direction. And if the movement feels sticky or rough, make it even slower. Maybe you make your circle smaller. Let the goal be smooth, easy, connected movement rather than the largest circle you can make. And as you finish that circle, take a moment just to pause. We'll take the circle in the opposite direction as well. Let the shoulder rise up towards your ear, and then let it go backwards first. Notice how the back body needs to contract and the front body needs to release to allow that action to happen. Shoulder will circle down towards the hip, and then slowly forward, and finally back up again. Give yourself one more cycle here. Notice how there are many, many moving parts that are allowing this action to happen. The shoulder blade needs to be free to move on your back, as well as the muscles that coordinate all these different directions in which the shoulder can move, being ready to both contract and to release to allow what's really a very dynamic movement of the shoulder in this circular way. As you finish your circle, give yourself a moment just to pause and to rest. The next shape we'll draw is a square. Again, this adaptation comes from Eric Cooper's work. First, we'll draw the shoulder up towards the ear. Now, imagine you were drawing a square here. Right now, you'll be on the top line of the square. Let the shoulder come forward to the top front corner of your square. And then let the shoulder move down, drawing the front line of the square from the top front corner to the bottom front corner. And then from the bottom front corner, come across the bottom, all the way to that back bottom corner. And then let the shoulder slowly rise up, finding that back top corner. And then let the shoulder come forward again, finishing your square. Coming all the way to the front corner again. Come through that square one more time. Again, from the front top to the front bottom. And then across that bottom line towards the back. Again, slowing the pace down, making the square any size that gives you a sense of connection and awareness in the shoulder. Up along that back line. And finally forward again. And then reverse your square. From the top front, come to the top back. And from the back, down that back line to the bottom corner. Across the bottom, all the way to the front bottom corner. And finally, up again to the top. Go one more time here. Across the top, all the way to the back. Really visualizing where that point might be in space, letting the shoulder move towards it. Then down along the back line. And from that bottom corner, forwards. And finally back up again. And then take a moment just to pause and to rest. We'll draw one more shape. This time, for variety's sake, we're going to start with the bottom corner rather than the top corner. Draw your shoulder down towards your hip. Now visualize where that front movement of the shoulder brought your shoulder to when you moved it towards your chest. We're going to draw a diagonal line from this bottom corner, from this bottom point rather, towards that front point. Let the shoulder rise forward and up on a diagonal until you found that point. Now from the forward point, let the shoulder rise up and backwards, again on a diagonal, until you found that top point where the shoulder moved towards the ear. Now let the shoulder move diagonally back and down until you found that back point. And then let the shoulder move again on the diagonal, a little bit forward and a little bit down until you've come back to the bottom point again. Give yourself one more diamond. Coming diagonally up to the front point, making your way towards the top point, and moving the shoulder back, diagonally down to the back point, and finally all the way back down to the bottom point. Reverse it. Come from the bottom, diagonally up and back, and then from that backwards point towards the topmost point by the ear. And then slowly guiding the shoulder on that diagonal towards the front point. And then tracing that line all the way back down to the starting point, down by the hip. And let the shoulder return back to whatever feels like neutral. We'll take one final circle for the shoulder. The shoulder rise up. Circle it around towards the back. Notice whether it's gotten easier to make that movement smoother, more aware, more connected. And once you finish the circle in the direction that you're moving, pause and reverse. Letting the shoulder come forward. And it circle around towards your hip. And finally make its way towards the back. And traveling up the back body, Come all the way back up to the starting point. And let your shoulder, your arm, come just to where they feel restful. And take a moment just to breathe. Notice whether there is more of you now in the space around that right shoulder. More presence, more awareness, almost like things have become real in that experience. And then to take the second side, come to your back first. Let your arms rest down. Take a moment just to notice whether there's a difference between the right side and the left. I know for me, my right side now feels grounded and supported by the floor, where the left feels like it doesn't really have a relationship or a connection there. We're going to bring that same support and awareness into the left shoulder. Then go ahead and make your way onto your right side. Again, as you set yourself up, find a place where your head and neck feel supported, where your back feels comfortable. You're making a pillow with your arm or placing some support there, letting your arm rest along the side of the body. And just as before, we'll start by letting the shoulder move forward. The shoulder come forward as if you were going to touch the center of your chest. Notice what contracts here. And then let the shoulder move back by releasing that contraction. Again, moving as slowly and smoothly out of that contraction as you can. Give yourself 2 more cycles here. The shoulder moving forward. Feel and visualize that line between your shoulder and your chest shortening. And then as you release that work, let that line lengthen. If there's resistance in the back body, do less. Try not to pull against places that carry tension, but instead wait for the time when they get a little chance to contract and release for them to soften. Once you've finished that connecting into the front body, then start to let the shoulder move towards the back. As it moves back, you might notice there's resistance in the front body. Again, be gentle. See if you can bring contraction into the muscles of the back body without pulling into any tension or painfulness in the chest. And shoulder will move backwards 2 or 3 times here. Just as on the first side, you might notice that drawing the shoulder back brings a little arching into your back and exploring that relationship between the low back and the free movement of the shoulder and shoulder blade. Again, as you finish, taking a moment just to pause. Next, we'll draw the shoulder up towards the ear. And as it moves up, notice what contracts. Where do you feel that engagement? And see if you can keep your attention there and release that contraction little by little by little to allow the shoulder to soften back down again. Give yourself a couple of cycles. Again, if you'd like, you can add lifting the head, almost as if you were holding something between your ear and your shoulder. And then very, very slowly release the contraction to come back to neutral. One more time here. Adding the lifting of the head or not, as feels right to you. And releasing your way back down. Final direction for the shoulder will be down towards the hip. And if you reach your fingers out past your hip a little further, you'll start to feel that the side body contracts to make that action happen. And then release from the side body to allow the shoulder to rise back up. We'll take a couple of cycles. You might notice that there's one particular direction in which it's difficult to connect or in which you feel a lot of tension or resistance. If so, feel free to pause, to take a couple extra cycles there, really building a sense of connection and integration from your mind, where you're paying attention, into that part of the body. Sometimes as things forget that connection, gets really challenging to move in those areas. So feel free to take extra time here with any one of those rays. We'll start by making a circle. The shoulder rise up, let it circle forward, and then let it move down and around towards the back. Give yourself one more circle here, moving in this forward direction. Again, working to make the movement smooth and even, letting it stay super slow. Slowing it down even more if you notice there's clicking or chattering or resistance. And as you finish your second circle, reverse the direction. You might notice that as you switch to your dominant side, which the left side is my dominant side, that there's more stickiness or more chattering or jerking in the movement. If so, let the movement get smaller. Let it get slower. That jerky sensation is often a sign of that disconnect, that sensory motor amnesia, that forgetting of connection between the places in your brain that control movement and those muscles in the body. See if you can let a deeper layer of tension release by really slowing things down, smoothing things out. As you finish your second circle, pause and rest. So just as we did on the other side, next we'll move towards drawing a square. Let your shoulder rise up towards your ear. This will be the top line, obviously. And then let it come forward, visualizing where the front corner of that square might be. And draw a line down in the front body, where that bottom front corner might be. Then come along the bottom line, feeling how the shoulder stays close to the hip, that the side waist muscles stay a little contracted, noticing what needs to release to allow you to bring the shoulder to this back bottom corner. And finally let it rise up along the back body, finding that back top corner. And then let it glide forward, completing that top line. Give yourself one more square moving in this direction, finding the top front, and then the front bottom, and then moving along the bottom line of your square towards the back, and finally drawing the back line of the square, and the shoulder rise up. And then finally letting it come back forwards again. And reverse the direction. Staying in that top line, move the shoulder to the back. And let it travel down the back body. Come across the bottom. Find the front corner on the bottom. And then let the shoulder rise up. One more time in this direction, taking that top line from the front towards the back, and then continuing to draw that line down the back body, coming across the bottom line from back to front, and finally bringing the shoulder back up to the starting point. And take a moment just to rest. Last pattern we'll try, of course, is that diamond shape. We'll start by going down. And then from down, come forward to that front point of the diamond, traveling at a diagonal. Once you found the front corner, come up and a little back until you find that top corner up by your ear. From that top point, start to draw a diagonal line backwards and down until you found that back point of your diamond. And from the back point, Draw a line diagonally down, a little bit forward until you found that bottom point again. Give yourself one more trace, moving in this direction, coming from the bottom to the front. Tracing that diagonal line from the front up to the top. And from the top, diagonally down to the back. And from the back, diagonally down to the bottom. Last movement here, reverse that direction from the bottom. Stay present with what's engaging to move the arm and what needs to release to allow your shoulder to travel through the lines of the shape. From the top, letting it float down towards the front. From the front, letting it travel diagonally to find that bottom point again. And then releasing back to neutral. And then one final time, let your shoulder move in that circular orbit. You're working to make that circle as smooth, as even, as slow as you can. And once you've finished a circle going one way, reversing that direction. Just exploring whether there might be a little easier movement of the shoulder now after taking all this time to connect. And as you finish that circle again, give yourself a moment just to rest. When you're ready, make your way back onto your back. And take a moment just to check in and feel. Notice whether there's balance now between the sides. Whether there's more conscious awareness and presence, more embodied experience in the shoulders now than from when you began your practice. Give yourself a moment or two here with your eyes closed, just for your body to absorb that work of connecting that you just did.